For girls and women, menstruation accompanies them everywhere, home, school, and even in the workplace. And, well, as girls or women, as you grow up, you kind of get used to it, even though the discomfort just don't go away. So we're having a good conversation on menstruation today because the 28th of May every year has been set aside for that to be done. And so Zarina Monday has been speaking to a group of adolescents about what they think about menstruation and the challenges that they tend to face, etc.
One morning when I wake up and the blood was all on the bed and I did not feel it. The next day again my skin became hot and I was vomiting with green stuff. It's come like malaria. My blood was black. When they took me to the hospital, they give me injection.
Okay. So since then, have you had the same feeling before during your period?
Yes, sometimes, but it's not always. Often I have it.
Okay. So what are some of the tips? What did your mom or aunt tell you when you saw your period for the first time?
She told me that the way my blood has come, I should not go like beside boys. I should not play with boys because if this one is flowing, if the boys, your opposite sex attracts you, it will cause problem for the individual. So you should not go beside boys, and you should learn how to change your pad. You should bath twice. If you are not bathing, you just wash yourself and change your pad.
Okay, so
you have special pants for pad.
Oh, okay. So you have a special panty. Okay, for menstruation. Okay, so you don't use the panties you use on a normal day.
When it's finished, then I use my normal pants.
How do you take care of yourself if you're in your period?
If you are not having sanitary pad, you can use the tea-roll and bath twice. Or use special cloth. When it's sore, then you remove it.
The first time I saw it, I wasn't scared because I knew as a girl I will although have menstruation, so I wasn't scared of it.
So what did you do?
I went to my mom and reported to her, and she told me it's normal.
What did she tell you? What were some of the additional information?
She gave me some advice that as now I am in my menstruation period, so I should be neat. Yes, I shouldn't make myself how I used to be at first. When I'm sitting, I should always sit down quietly.
Oh, okay. You should sit down quietly. Okay, so tell me, how do you take care of yourself? What do you do when you're in your period?
When I'm in my period, I don't play such games, running about. Yeah, and I also don't accompany with boys.
Oh, okay. Okay. So let's come to Stephanie. What was the first experience like for you?
I was very scared when I saw it, so I went to my mom and reported it to her, and she told me that it is normal. Then she gave me some advices. She told me I shouldn't go to boys, and when I'm sitting down, I should sit down well as a girl.
What did she tell you about taking care of the blood and all that?
She told me that when I'm going to bath, I should make sure I bath well, and she showed me the way to bath.
She showed you how to bath. Okay, so what do you use when you're in your period?
Yes.
You use Yas sanitary pad?
Yes.
Okay. So how often do you change your sanitary pad?
Once.
Are you sometimes uncomfortable because you're in your period?
No.
Okay.
Very surprised because I did not know that it will come at this age. So I consulted my auntie and she told me I should always change my sanitary pad so that like my body will not be dirty, otherwise I'm not keeping my hygiene well.
What products did your mom or your aunt give you when you saw your period first?
She gave me sanitary pads and she bought a new towel for me and she bought a new sponge for me, and she said I shouldn't use it with anybody.
How often do you change your sanitary pad?
3 times a day.
That's my colleague Zarina. They're having a conversation with some young girls about their experiences.
Once there is a day set aside for us to talk about menstruation, I think it's appropriate that we have this conversation today. And I'm all excited. Justice Baidu also has a very interesting story to share with us. We'll bring you that in the course of our conversation. Let me just introduce to you my guest in studio. Mr. David Duncan is Chief Water, Sanitation and Hygiene with WASH UNICEF. Good morning. Thanks for coming. Also, Letitia Akon is WASH Specialist, WASH in Schools, also with UNICEF. Good morning. Since your target is with schools, I'm sure you have a lot of experiences to share with girls and menstruation. What have you been finding?
Thank you very much for the invitation this morning. We've actually supported government to do a study to look at exactly that. What are the challenges facing girls and how they're dealing with it? And some of the things we found have been rather surprising. We found many of the taboos that we thought might be out there do exist. The taboos around preparation of food, around eating with families, and sometimes even exclusion from events or from whole family units. But we also found things like the challenges of girls being able to just manage their menstruation. The fact that many girls weren't even aware of what was going on when they had their first mens, their first period. And so that, for many of them, that was a very traumatic experience. And we've also discovered that really providing some simple education for girls, both prior to their first period, will help that enormously. But also many of them have no idea how to manage their menstrual hygiene. They've got no idea what materials they can use. There's in some cases, expectation that they need to have expensive materials when that's not necessarily the case. And so we're even finding that some girls are going as far as borrowing money, taking money from people, and there's some questions about what they're willing to do for that. So we found everything from a lack of knowledge before menstruation through to a lack of knowledge of how they manage it, and then a real lack of understanding of how those girls could necessarily help each other or get support from others to manage that.
Yeah, wow, interesting revelations. But Letitia, who is supposed to be telling young girls first about menstruation?
We believe that girls grow up in families. So the first point of contact is the family, the mother in the home. Before the child even gets to that age, we know that it is a growth in the child. So we should speak about it, be open about it, and let the girl know so that when it happens, it's not a surprise to the girl. But as you know and I know, I'm sure you didn't even know what menstruation was about till it just happened. Yes.
And I wonder why is that? Why is it not part of the everyday conversations that parents would have?
Yeah, it's almost like a taboo topic. It's there, but then it's difficult for parents to really share with their kids all these things because either they think they are too young to understand or the implications about it. Let's wait. It starts with the grandmothers, with the mothers, and then it carries on in generation. So I did the same. I have 3 girls, and I don't think I had the opportunity to really tell. The first one had it, then I said, no, let me quickly.
It looks like it's time now.
It's time now to let the others also get to know, because we seem to not understand that they are growing and they'll catch up with these things. And sometimes we leave it to the school. They'll do life skills in school, and maybe the teachers will teach them that. Sometimes we feel shy to discuss these things, personal things with our family, and I think it's been the tradition for some time now, and we wait till it happens, then we sit the girl down and now teach her, now that you have menstruated, and our emphasis is always on be careful about boys, and not even
don't get pregnant.
If
not how to take care of yourself properly.
No, it's more about if a boy touches you, get, and that's the myth. If you say touch, it should go beyond that. Let the child understand, have sex with you. But you know, all these things are sensitive in our culture, so it's difficult for mothers to go all out and say the whole thing in its details. So we'll just scratch the surface So what the girls do is now they take solace in their peers in school, and then they pick up things from them. And a study showed that some even have this kind of information that when you are having your menstrual cramps, that's when you should have sex so that it can relieve the pain. So you can understand the kind of information out there which is so misleading, for which we as parents and adults and even the school at large should be involved in this.
David, I wonder if this research also touched on the role of men.
It did. It looked at what the perceptions were, but also how men and boys can help girls through this process.
Okay.
And certainly there was stories coming back. Yes, there is teasing going on still, and certainly the research that's been done both in Ghana and elsewhere shows that if we can educate the boys as well, firstly, then ultimately they grow into men who understand this. But even as boys, it's often the most sensitive time for management of the menstruation is when girls are first going through it. So if the boys have an understanding of how they can help the girls, and so they can be a positive support rather than be a negative influence on them, and move from teasing to supporting, understanding what's going on and understanding that at these times girls might need support in different ways.
And I was trying to catch up with activities elsewhere because 28th of May is the day that's set aside. And I realized there were a lot of materials with India, and people were still sharing experiences of things happening today that I thought, oh, we've actually moved on. That people are not supposed to cook, not sleep on the same sheets, things like that. I wonder why we're still in this era. And Letitia, what are some of the peculiar things with us in Ghana?
Yeah, it's true. Study also came up with some of these findings. Though it has reduced to some extent, but we still have girls or women who are menstruating for religious reasons who might not be asked to participate in some kind of activity. And so we have those things when it comes to religion. And we also have some also believing that when you are menstruating, you are not clean, so you shouldn't cook. So we still have that. And then we also had a situation where girls are exempted from domestic work during menstruation. So we still have some of these taboos and things in the communities as you
Amazing. And I wonder what else we can do again, but we will touch on that. Let's just go and watch a story that one of my colleagues, Justice Bedo, has put together. And I'm using this from your study. An estimated 95% of girls either absent themselves from school or run away from school activities during menstruation to avoid stigmatization and embarrassment from their male counterparts. That's according to a UNICEF study. The following story, Justice Bedo reports from the Ashanti regional town of Deria to speak to some of the girls kept out of school by menstruation and how one young woman is helping change that.
A hard task before the day's school journey begins in Deria, a remote village in Ghana's Ashanti region. Today is a difficult day for 15-year-old Hawa. It's the first day of her menstrual cycle for this month. This ragged cloth is what she uses. She has just one and has to wash every time it is soiled with blood. On days like this, going to school is tough. Hawa is able to make it, but half of all girls who stay out of school in Ghana do because they can't afford sanitary pads. The secrecy surrounding menstruation and sexual health in Ghana means nobody talks to girls like Hawa about the changes she's experiencing, not even her parents.
The Quatina home say to me, I said no food.
I crum so be as I did na a war near ye man and son of a pia bunting and I be our fabema. Tia can bet to a hundred the honor the audace and the banner near and I would do say na why yes I did. On found so better pad or no didn't be an eye the man. Sapa date cities no nisi can cotoman.
A basana. Meet me so lippy. I'm semi cotlet and think I just and me cotlet. No, my buffy. No, my baby jolly. In the ice and I'm because we are meeting and I want check. The corner me by my corner me basana.
Some of them they use racks and those things when they get into their menses, and in the absence of that, they feel they will soil themselves when they come to school. So during those periods, some of them intentionally absent themselves, not because of menstrual pains, but the anxiety that sets in that they may soil their dresses.
Stories of girls staying out of school because they can't afford sanitary pads is one that Bernice Dapa is all too familiar with whilst growing up in the same area.
I used to get all these rags on clean clothes just to use this, clean it and use it again. Sometimes I have to hang it in the room because I feel so ashamed to go and hang it outside to get the sunlight that can kill all the bacteria or any germs in it. So I could see it's really an issue that we need to tackle.
Now she wants to help change that working with her charity organization. Through Bernice's work, the girls in Dewia will be able to stay in school, at least for now. But hundreds, possibly thousands of other girls their age may continue to stay away from the classroom because a sanitary pad is too costly. Justice Beidou, Joy News, Dewia, in the Ashanti region.
Interesting from Justice Beidou. Letitia, you're familiar with this one too. The
Yes.
fact that young girls obviously can't afford sanitary pads, but in certain areas even the parents cannot buy for their children.
Exactly.
Are there options?
Yes, there are, and that's what we also want to encourage. That the most important thing is the hygienic management of the material, but local materials like old clothes could be used. And what we are telling the girls and the mothers is you should get a special cloth that you dedicate for that. So you have a series of them, maybe 5 cut out, and then you wash them as and when you use them. Hang them in the sun to dry because it has to kill the bacteria so that you reduce infection or prevent infection.
So you're not asking us to throw our old traditions away?
Not really, because we can't get the pad in every corner of the country. As the woman rightly said, it's 8 cedis. How many parents can afford a 3 square meal, even with the 8 cedis, let alone buy it for a girl every month? So what we are saying is we could have these ones, and we have a lot of NGOs and individual people going about doing innovative ways of using the local materials. Some have done it in the form of even the pad where you can tag it so that it doesn't move about and dislodge. Because some of the challenges to it, sometimes you may be running and may fall off. I had the experience when I was in the secondary school, so I can attest to that. When I had to go for classes and then I was running and then this thing fell off and I had to step on it and stand and wait for everyone to pass by.
Because you didn't want anybody to see you.
Then I pick it quickly. And so now they are coming up with innovative ways of strapping it so that the girls will be comfortable to use. And then the most important thing is regular changing it so that it doesn't become too soaked. And then when you sit down, you have to have some spots and then you get teased. Yeah. So we are emphasis on the management and using this and keeping it hygienically. When you are done, you keep them safe, pack them back into a pack so that when there's time, you also reuse it. Yeah.
I see that David has some module to share with us. This is one that's been developed by UNICEF.
Yes.
Okay.
This is one that's actually been developed by the government with UNICEF support.
Okay.
And we'd like to thank Canada for their support to enable us to do that. But it's a tool for teachers to take the children through how they can use local materials, how they can use sanitary pads, but some of the other things as well. Things like, I've got this one here, which is the menstrual calendar.
Okay, so we start with the calendar.
We start with the calendar.
Okay.
We look
can
at,
we just
yes,
raise
certainly.
it a bit so that
Yes.
the camera can, yeah.
Okay, so we start with the calendar so that girls can then have an understanding of how they can actually work out when their periods are due, and really importantly for girls that have irregular periods, they can get an understanding of when the period might be coming on, and so that they can manage things around that. This is also important in terms of, as a slight aside, in terms of helping them also avoid things like teenage pregnancy, as they understand the menstrual cycle and understand that it's associated with pregnancy and childbearing. This will also help in terms of reducing the childhood teenage pregnancy. Just that very simple understanding of the menstrual calendar.
Okay.
And then we move across to having an understanding of what the impacts are on your body, how this might affect girls. And this is provided for both girls and boys. So boys also get that understanding. This is what girls are going through. I'm never going to experience this.
Yeah.
And from some of what I've heard, a lot of it I don't want to experience. But, I mean, it is a very natural and a very important part of a girl's maturity and their adolescent period. So it is really important that both the boys and girls understand it. And so, again, there's a little bit more information on how it might be managed, how it might affect the girls, and then what can they do about it. Keeping up fluid intakes and that sort of thing are important. And it's also important that girls actually understand when is things not normal. And when the periods go on for too long, there may be challenges. Or when the bleeding is too heavy during the daytime, there may be challenges. And because there's so little information around, it's very difficult for a girl to know, this is a problem for me. I might actually have some real difficulties that I need to see to. And then as we go through a little bit more, we get more into how people can help, how people can manage this. And then there's some discussion about the use of the local materials, the sanitary pads. And there's a bit more information on how girls can actually manage using the local materials.
How to dispose.
Yep, or even how to manage and reuse. And do so in a safe way that doesn't dirty everything else around with blood and other materials. And then, as you say, how to dispose of it safely. So there's also a little bit of information about the broad management around menstruation. Keeping clean is an important thing. Bathing yourself twice a day to make sure that you stay clean. And a lot of this is about, as much as anything, helping girls understand this is natural. These are simple, straightforward ways you can manage this and still feel good about yourself, because it's the biggest challenge we've seen with girls is, one is the health impacts of poor menstrual hygiene management, and not just in the short term. This can have very serious lifelong impacts if it's not managed well. And the second one is the dignity. It's one of the biggest challenges that we've seen that all girls face around this, is maintaining dignity. The number of stories of girls who have saw themselves in public places. And
that kind of can stay on your mind
absolutely.
for like forever.
And the stigma sometimes associated with it within a classroom. And then just some of the simple ideas around that. And I think there's one on the next page looking at just, sorry, no, apologies, a little bit earlier. But looking at just simple things like the use of the pullover, the jumper, and those sorts of things. And also there's a little bit at the very front just talking through what the biological changes that it's going through. So
this material is what, available in schools, or how are you making it available?
At the moment we've just finished the development of the materials. So the next stage is to then work out how to best use it within the schools. It's been an ongoing process over a couple of years at the moment, and we're still working out how to use this in the best way. What approaches from teachers gets the best results. We're combining this with approaches involving play, because we've seen that really does help in terms of learning. But from our perspective, this is critical in keeping girls in school, because we're seeing that girls are dropping out at greater rates than boys as they go from primary school to junior high school, and we need to address that. And one of the factors is the fact that they're not able to manage their menstrual hygiene well enough. Some of that is about having the facilities in the schools, and some of that about just having the simple knowledge and understanding of what they can do.
Yeah. Natisha, is it still relevant that we pursue like a free sanitary pad for all school children, all girls in schools?
The issue about the free pad is the sustainability, because it's something that girls will go through throughout their lifetime, every month. Is it sustainable? Can the country afford? That's where we should think at. What we can do is maybe getting it cheaper in other jurisdictions. That's what has been done, so that, I mean, people can produce it locally at a cheaper price. If it is less than $1, maybe a lot of people can afford that. But if it's going to be provided free, my worry is the sustainability. Because the moment you start and you cannot sustain it, it would have been better you left the child to manage the way he or she could manage than to introduce her to something. Now you cannot provide it and she's waiting and it's not coming, and it's a bit confusing and uncomfortable. So it's the sustainability. If we have that much and we assess and we can pay, but I think in all reality, I think the best will be that we see how we can support people to produce locally, so that it can be cheaper.
Yeah. How can we make girls love this experience? And I'm saying this, I know that even as you mature, there are days that you really wish it won't happen. Exactly. So how can we begin to let girls love the experience?
Yeah, I think we are launching this program. We call it Be Amazing.
Be Amazing.
Yes, Be Amazing, with the school kids, and we have these flyers and other things that they should understand. It's part of womanhood. It is a process that you have to go through, and every woman will have to go through it. It's painful though. So some of the education is on how to manage the pain. Some people do not know, even if you use warm cloth, you can ease the pain a bit. And when you get active during menstruation, it also helps the clots to dislodge so that you have a better flow and it reduces the cramps. What we realize is, rather, when you are in your menses, you want to keep to yourself and you become very dull and on a very low side, and that's when you get
Mine is like the opposite of what you've described.
Oh, okay.
Because I want to do a lot of work.
Oh, okay.
That's when I keep things in order at home.
Oh, okay. Then maybe then you will not experience a lot of cramps like those. Exactly.
Okay.
So when you get very active, you have less pain as compared to when you are very dull and you are coiled up in bed. Then you have the pain intensifying with every So we tell them taking a lot of fluid and fruits. So we are giving them what it takes to manage the menstruation, so that they see it as part of their life, so that the 5 day doesn't become horrible 5 days for girls, but they will find ways of getting out of the pain and managing it, so that they are sure they won't soil themselves, because these are some of the two things that get people scared and withdrawn from getting into active service.
I don't know if there's any plan to get, first of all, it's interesting that UNICEF is into this menstrual hygiene, this whole conversation. It's amazing that you put this together, for instance, in the flyers. I think it's cool. But is there a way to get men into this? Because I kind of like the way you're talking about this comfortably. And if a lot more men would, then we'll be actually getting somewhere real quick.
I agree. And there's one of the ways is to get the boys into it. Boys grow into men. I mean, the long-term plan is to get the boys involved now when they're in school. And those in senior high school and even late junior high school will be men very, very soon. But in terms of the community, at the moment we've been focusing on the school messaging in the school and how we do that. We also recognise that we need to look at how do we take some of the messages into the community. So that's the next step in the process. And we're not going to break down all the taboos at once. We recognise everywhere where we have been breaking down taboos in any area, it takes time. So it's part of a strategy of who are the right influences within the community. The mothers have certainly a core role, but we also have to speak directly to the men and the men's groups within the communities. Religious leaders are also fairly central in this. So it's a part of putting a whole strategy together on who are the key people we need to influence so that men start to change their mind.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you, there's a man who sent me a message from Obuase. He says the pad, the way they dispose it, it's a problem spiritually. I'm sure you've come across this as well.
Yes.
How do we cure this?
Yeah, I know it is one of the issues that UNICEF is currently facing with facilities. We provide institutional facilities for schools, and in order to encourage girls to change and be comfortable whilst in school, we've, as part of the design, which is the standard design for GS, we have a place for changing, a changing room for the women. And what has come to us is the girls are not willing to dispose of and leave their pad. And the reason was that they are afraid people will use it for spiritual purposes. So those things have come up. So, but we believe with education, people will come to understand that, I mean, it could be a belief. So then the next thing will be, how do we manage this to ensure that at least people will be comfortable to dispose of? So we are thinking of digging deep holes and rather dropping them so that people will not have access to the soiled pads.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a challenge because now the pad is a bit plastic. So decomposition is also an issue.
Interesting. This is one of the conversations I think we should be having regularly because we need to get somewhere.
Exactly.
And if we do it just 28th or days after, I'm not sure it will make the necessary impact. There are girls who are really itching to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we should do this again and activate the phone lines and get people to share their challenges with us some other day. But I am super grateful that you could make it today. Yeah. Thank you for this conversation.
But just to add to this, you are one of our advocates. We have Israel also here.
Yes.
As one of our ambassadors.
Yeah.
And yesterday he was wonderful with the kids. And we also have Miss V on board.
Okay.
We also have Becca. We also have Ajua Yebueje. We also have Nana McBrown.
Okay.
And Samima Muslim also.
Oh, Shamima.
Shamima, sorry.
Okay.
Also,
you have great ambassadors.
Exactly. Okay. So they are all willing to assist us to make sure that this message goes. So it's not only a 28th May affair.
Yeah.
And also we have created a website, www.menstrualhygiene.com, that you can visit and get information. So we are launching it, we're educating the children. They can go there and get information. Because what we realize is knowledge about it also, lack of knowledge about it also influence.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Letitia, and also to you, David. Just before I wrap up on this, there's an advocate, somebody who's been strong in doing advocacy in this area, Edith Asamani, and she joins us via Skype to have a real quick conversation. We'll bring you entertainment courtesy Airtel after. All right, so we've been talking menstrual absenteeism, menstrual hygiene, a whole conversation on menstruation, call it periods. And we're making Roland an ambassador too. He's inspired by Israel Lai. And
I'm not inspired by Israel Lai. I have no qualms discussing issues of women and the subject of women's hygiene and their health, especially their sexual reproductive health. I feel that if you're a man, you are with women, you work with women, relate with women, you are in relationships with women, etc. Their needs should also be a concern, because it's when you do that you can relate with them better.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Edith, we were going to speak to Edith, who's been doing a lot of advocacy work. I think we can have a stable connection with her now, and we can hear her, hopefully. Edith Asamani is joining us via Skype. Edith, good morning again.
Good morning, Mama.
Fantastic. I can hear you now. So tell us about some of the places where you do your work and some of the things you found out.
Generally, advocacy is done everywhere. I started advocacy when I was 11 because I realized from the community that I lived in that there were too many issues, but somehow those issues were seen as norms, and some of it was teenage pregnancy and issues about boys, for instance, seeing sanitary pads in your purse and in your bag and laughing at you, and the whole stigma about menstruation and so many other issues. So advocacy is done everywhere. So as much as possible, I use every single platform that I find myself on, including your very good platform, and to do my kind of advocacy.
What is that one thing that you think we've got to work on as a nation with menstruation in our girls?
I think Letitia and David have said a lot. However, I think as a country, we need to synchronize efforts. A lot of civil society organizations are doing marvelous things to ensure that girls have access, for instance, to information on their menstrual hygiene. They are also doing a lot to ensure that girls have access to affordable sanitary pads.
Yeah.
However, Letitia mentioned something about sustainability and how, for instance, you can ensure that girls get free or very affordable sanitary pads for the rest of their lives that they are menstruating. And that is one thing that I feel that government has a huge responsibility on, because a lot of times you see the Ghana Education Service and the Ghana Health Service, implementing programs for menstrual hygiene management together. But you see, menstrual hygiene management is not just a thing about education and health. We are talking about, it's a child protection issue. Menstruation is a child protection issue. So we are also looking at bringing the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection on board. Menstruation is a finance issue. Without money, you cannot, for instance, say that we need to build separate toilets for girls and boys in different schools so that girls, for instance, have the privacy to change their pads when they have to. You cannot talk about having water and soap and the kind of facilities that they need to wash their hands. So it's a lot of ministries that have to come together to work. And I think that synchronization is what's missing. A lot of times when you talk menstrual hygiene management, it is just Ghana Education Service and Ghana Health Service. So it's one of the things I keep advocating for, that we have individual responsibilities. I, for instance, would go around and do my education and do as much as I can. But government has a lion's share of the responsibility.
Yeah.
They go out and sign all the commitments on behalf of Ghana.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were there when the Sustainable Development Goals were adopted. And Ghana is a signatory to it. And we are talking about quality education and ensuring that we keep girls in school. So,
Edith, I tell you what, you and I should sit down in the studio on Friday and have a longer conversation. And we can talk about girl-boy relationship as well. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. To brief, Edith Asmani has been doing a lot of advocacy work in the area of menstruation. We need to get all the boys involved in this talk of menstrual
hygiene. Indeed we need to, because whatever affects women also tends to have a certain reflection on their male counterparts that they relate with. And I feel that everybody should be interested in sexual reproductive health and the way women's sexual reproductive health relate to the community.
Yeah. All right. We thank you for watching our show. We've been asking you, what do you think about the police, whether you trust them or not. That conversation will be had right here on Joy News Interactive later on this morning. So all the thoughts you've been sharing with us, Gloria will be here to let everybody know what you've been saying. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.